Are black men naturally conservative? Or is that, are black men only liberal or democratic because they're in America? That if you take the typical black man, passport bro or whatever, and he leaves America, goes to another place, finds a traditional wife, and kind of likes it there, and people say, hey, this is the tradition. Well, he turned conservative. So is black men naturally democratic? Now, I know how the whole democratic and conservative game is played here in America. I've made numerous videos on it. You have to understand that the Democratic Party of the 1950s would be more conservative than the Conservative Party now. Yeah, things constantly change. Let's go back to the 1950s. Well, now, what the Conservative Party and the Democratic Party was about. First of all, most of white Democrats back in them days didn't care too much for black people. And they had things that were in common. Neither one of these parties would want to see more black representation on TV. They was both against gay marriage, and really, they wasn't strong advocates about women's rights. You know what I mean? They both had preferred clean-cut men, no beards, no tattoos, family values. But the difference is, the Democratic Party wanted the larger government. They want to regulate big industries so families wouldn't be eating tainted steak on the table. They wanted to preserve wildlife and preserve nature. These were their goals, and we know the Republican Party, and of course the Democrats did not want cartoon characters smoking cigarettes. And the Republican Party was like, well, if you're powerful and you have money, yeah, what I'm saying, the rules shouldn't have to stick to you because you're creating jobs and so forth, and we need to stay out of big industry. And big industry, pay the Republicans, so lobbyists, so they can do what they want, so they can import Komodo dragons and make food out of them or whatever they wanted to do. But things changed over time. So, the Democratic Party wanted power, so they're like, okay, we're going to let black people into the fold, we're going to help them out and so forth. And the Republican Party wanted power, wanted to stay in about votes, and they wanted to embrace, white racist and believing that, poor white people are better than black people of whatever social economic standing. I'm like, that's clear. So the Republican Party kind of needs an enemy. They want an enemy, immigrants and black people. See, this is why black people are unfairly thrown in the pile with transgenders and gay rights. And you see these black celebrities like, like Marlon Wayne's kowtow and bend it down to him, a gay son. My father would kick my ass and disown me if I was gay. You see what I'm saying? So now it's like, and it's kind of unfair. And it don't matter how many black Republicans there are, black people are going to be thrown in the Democratic and liberal pile, as we're the enemy. Now we got Republicans, and these transgenders and blacks, and they just throw us all in the same pile and so forth. It's almost like Autobots and Decepticons. And also, the thing is, if we want to get Republican and we want to get really conservative, we need to go really, really conservative. Because the Conservative Party is benefiting from progressive movements. We're talking about no women should be doing any kind of political commentary. Let's go back to the 40s and 50s, and let's use that as a parameter. No violence in movies. Men walking around with no shirts off, like Rambo gunning people down. Back in the 1950s, the conservatives and the Democrats would be appalled of such violence. You know, all that machismo. I'm like, of course, we like manhood, but you know what I'm saying? That's why you didn't see all this violence in movies. And just look at the movies that came out in the 1950s. You didn't see all this violence. They used to use tricks. They'll have a guy with a gun shooting somebody, and then you hear a body falling. You didn't see people getting their freaking heads blown off. You know, back in those days, this grotesque violence, gratuitous violence just didn't exist back then. Political parties shut that down. The Democrats was the main ones going after cartoons. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? If you wonder why cartoons back in the days was so, you know what I mean, like something like Thundar the Barbarian. That got taken off the air because it was too violent. It was too sexist. Mainly by Democratic groups. And no, they didn't like they wanted cartoons to be like the Smurfs. You know what I'm saying? Simple, easy. They want educational cartoons. They didn't even want even Johnny Quest. They was going after Johnny Quest. Cartoons where there's like this conflict and people are holding guns and weapons and fighting each other. They didn't want that. You know, they want like Laugh Olympics or wacky races. But and they definitely did not want cartoons tying in with toys. It was actually Ronald Reagan, the Republicans, that kind of, you know, they were like, hey, man, let's ease back. Let's let these cartoons kind of do what they want to do. If you want to came out with cartoon barbarians fighting evil lords and make toys and franchise off that, yeah, seriously, go look that up. That's when we got this influx of like He-Man and Centurions and Mask and G.I. Joe, all these cartoons popping up. Weapons and fightings and explosions, and then you got the toy tie-in. Yeah, it was the Republicans who did that. Because their whole thing was like, man, it's a free market. Let the market decide. A cartoon like Thundar the Barbarian came out before, you know, a little before Ronald Reagan uplifted those sanctions and so forth from. You know, so Thundar the Barbarian had to be the sacrifice. They're like, oh man, this shit is too violent, man. They're in decrepit cities, you know, fighting monsters, and Thundar, he was kind of like a sexist. He'd be like, women can do that, you know. You can look that up on YouTube. Thundar sexism. They won't let that go, you know. So, and that's the thing. So when we analyze now, the Republican and Democratic Party has just been so stupid. It's so simplified now. I urge people to not listen to these dumbass YouTubers like Myron and do your own research on why was the Republican Party started in the first place, the Conservative Party. Obviously, when America first started, there couldn't be a Conservative Party because America didn't have a past to go to where people could say, ooh, like this. The Conservative Party didn't emerge until like 1850. And yes, the Conservative Party was against slavery. You know, so America was like almost 100 years old before a conservative party can emerge, because this conservative party was like concerned about, you know, how things are going. But that's all I want to say. Thanks for watching. Never stop learning.